I'm here with the Wichita State University Suits team, and we're going to be doing a live react to their test run at the Rock Yard at NASA Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. So, SUITS is an acronym that actually stands for Spacesuit User Interface Technologies for Students. It's one of our Artemis student challenges, and specifically, SUITS challenges students to design and create spacesuit information displays with augmented or mixed reality to assist crew members when they're performing extravehicular activities, EVAs, or even future moonwalks. So like I said, we're going to do a live react with the Wichita team. We have them here. They're actually a team of 7 from Wichita, Kansas. We have 4 joining us today. So let's get into it. Let's do some introductions. Abby, let's start with you. I would love to hear your name, your major, and your role on the team.
Hi, I'm Abby Hutton. I am a human factors psychology PhD student at Wichita State. And my role on the team kind of played a few roles. One was a researcher to understand, better designs, but also a designer on the design side as well. So a couple roles for me.
Awesome. Excited to see you in action on this test run. Ramil, let's go to you.
I'm Ramel Hinshaw. I'm a computer science major who just recently graduated with a bachelor's. And believe it or not, I am the computer programmer for the team, and I do all the programming through Unity.
Awesome. Thanks. Glad you're here with us. Valerie, let's go to you.
I'm Valerie Hubner. I'm in the Masters of Innovation Design program, and most of my classes revolve around UX design and research and a little bit of human factors. So on the team, I mostly was involved with the UX design and research side of it.
Awesome. And last but certainly not least, Shayo, go ahead.
I'm Oluwaseyo Adekalu, and I'm with the Masters of Innovation Design too. Majorly, my role on the team was the UX design. So we did the design of the user interface.
Awesome. I'm definitely going to have some questions for you too later about that user experience piece. But let's just give some background for the audience right now. What we're looking at on screen is the Rock Yard at Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. It's a multi-acre test area which simulates general features of lunar and Martian surface terrain, including rocks, craters, and it's really the perfect site for testing their device. So Abby, could you give us a little background on the challenge and what the goal of the test run is that we're going to see here?
Yeah, so basically the goal was we had 2 testing sessions, one on Friday night where you just kind of get the bugs out and go through the testing and go to each station. So you go to 3 different stations. You don't know which stations those are until they tell you verbally before, once you complete each station. And then at each station, you do several different tasks like collect a sample or take a photo of a sample or maybe even check, temperature or other kind of vitals and systems statuses like that. So that's kind of a basis of it. I think in all it took like 25, 30 minutes or so in total. So I think there's a total of 7 coordinates or 7 stations. So, and we only had to go to 3 of those. So.
Cool. And yeah, that's exactly what we'll be seeing in a few minutes when your test run starts. But I'm curious to know, while we have like the whole group together here, what was the feeling of traveling out to Texas together and like being in person together for this stage of your challenge?
Well,
I'll go first. It was really nice. My first time, I'm just barely here in US. And that was my first time in Houston, Texas. I've heard a lot about it and it's nice. And of course, it was the best way to bond with the team. We had our differences, our different classes, different, jobs and stuff. But when we were in Houston, we had only one mindset and one focus, and that was the NASA Switch Challenge. So it was a nice experience to bond.
I guess to add on to that, we were definitely known as the fun group over there. So
Really?
we definitely
Shocking.
so we definitely took advantage of this free vacation with NASA, like going to Galveston and all that, and just like checking out the place because I never left Kansas much. So it was nice seeing Texas, and the beach was a fun experience as well. And it was just really fun. Like the rooms were nice and all that. I think we all had like a great time over there.
Yeah, and we definitely
Awesome.
got to network with other people who are like us and some who have different backgrounds as well, which was awesome. So,
Yeah, Bill and I, so Bill is our team lead. We didn't get to get there until around Sunday, so we were only there for 2 days, so we didn't get as much of that experience, but it was a good time.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to hear a little bit more about your team. We're going to jump into the test run starting now. So walk me through just what we're seeing here. Who's on screen? I know, Abby, I see you, but can you tell me who's wearing the device and kind of just set the stage of what's going on?
Yeah, so this was our user on the second test night. He basically was prepped and we taught him how to use the device and with like a 2D version on a iPad, and then we had him go through some practice with the actual HoloLens device that you see there on his head. But yeah, we basically, this was right before we started the testing. We were getting our coordinate of where to go or our station, which one, I believe it was probably like A or something. But we were getting that information and we were just kind of gearing up to get started at this point. So
Cool. And the other people that are there, are they like other challenge teams or people supporting you?
So there was one person that walked with me who was on the right of the screen. She just guided and told where, what stations we were going to be at. And then the people now on the right of the screen, as you can see, those were other testing. I think 3 groups went at a time or 2 groups went at a time, and basically had their own little team of people who would walk the rock yard. So.
Did it feel like you were like competing with those other teams right next to you, or was it like nice to be going at the same time as other people?
Honestly, like I kind of blacked that out. I don't, for lack of a better word, but like.
Yeah, you're in the zone. I got it.
I kind of blacked that out. Like, you know what, we're gonna do our own thing, and because we all would go separate ways at that point, so then it didn't really feel like there was anything else around.
So
But, yeah.
I can see here we're seeing like the display, this like VR AR element. Ramil, can you describe the current display, what we're seeing, and the purpose of it?
So the design that we thought of was it was going to be a heads-up display that always follows the head. So as if it's not on here right now, but earlier when it showed like the screen, it would always follow the person's head no matter where they face, and that was what we called home. We had other UI interfaces implanted where it follows the user, but it's not in the way. And the reason why we went for this design is because we want to show like important status information that just shows in front of the user at all times. So if like vitals is going wrong, or you get a chat from the server, it would like prompt the user.
Gotcha. And I know you kind of went into this, but what's the benefit for spacesuits and having these commands be in AR? I know there's some voice command elements too, but what's the benefit of that for space exploration?
Like for voice commands and all that, like the benefit is we want the UI to be very unintrusive while being interactable at the same time. So as you can see, like it took multiple presses there to press the button, and this isn't just like an issue that we face. This is something everyone else faced, and this is just due to the nature of the hardware with low lighting conditions, where it's just very hard to press things. So
Gotcha.
it became very common for like other schools, including us, to incorporate voice commands. I don't think our participant used a lot of voice commands here on a lot of the things, but thankfully the interaction with the buttons, we size them up quite a bit where it would be easier to press.
Yeah, and another big benefit I think to having this type of a system in spacesuits is they use their hands a lot, and those get very tired potentially. We did some background reading, and it's like the most fatigue, part of the suit and the body of the astronaut. So being able to incorporate those voice commands, and potentially down the road, I think we wanted to incorporate some gaze interaction. So looking, directly looking at something and potentially it's selecting it if you looked at it for a certain amount of seconds or something.
Is that what we're seeing here with the multiple displays popping up, or is that the home and another element?
So once like that top bar that follows him with the mission log and the map there on the left and status and chat, once you click on something and interact with it, it opens up another panel, depending on which one you open, whether it would be like a bigger map or the chat window or status. So it opens up a separate window. Like here, he's clicking on, he just closed that window that was open on the bottom, the settings window.
While this is up, can you guys talk me through what all these different elements are? I know it's kind of changing as you go, but just kind of a background on what the different elements that are in this component.
I think I'll do that. Starting from the left side, you have the map, which is the mini map, which can be enlarged to a bigger map. This is to help them navigate safely. And then we have terrain sensing, which helps to detect the difference in the depth of terrain. And also we have like the hazard detector, which helps to map out if there's an hazard on the way. Then moving towards the right, we have the mission log, which shows you the tasks you have to complete, and it crosses out each task as you complete them. I mean, you can see it at the part in the video where it crosses out some tasks. And above it, we have the compass and the time, the mission time. And moving to the right, we have the vitals and the status, which shows you your different vitals. Actually, we put the two main ones. We put the oxygen on top so because it's very vital to us, and we know you might constantly want to check that. So we had to put that as a major vital to look at. And then we had the battery for the suits just beside it for you to check those because those are the very important ones to us during our research. And as of course below it we have the vitals and the status in the chat. The status when you click on it, it opens up to a bigger list of all the vitals we're given and some of which we added based on our research. And also we have the chat, which is to the extreme of the right, which is where you get like messages from the other EV, from the control station, and
Right.
emergency information.
So just a few things, not a lot. That's
Mhm.
amazing,
Yeah.
like how much you actually
It
worked
sounds
into
like a
that.
lot, but it's not a lot. It just
Yeah.
It's a lot for someone who doesn't program things like this on the regular.
Mhm.
So it's really amazing what you're able to accomplish. So I saw them logging. I think it said regolith, and what was that part of the task? Like what task were they completing there?
So that was actually where they were collecting the sample. So he took a photo of the sample in front of him, and then it came up automatically with a note sheet. So you can click what type it was, and then different descriptive terms like color and like different notes about that and size. And we made it easy so that you could just click buttons, but then also had the option at the bottom to type or voice text if it was a longer type of a note. So.
And what is this screen, this test site
Uh,
navigation?
so our navigation, it was obviously everyone's supposed to implement GPS. Everyone had issues with GPS, but they had like some substantial version of it out there. And then, I mean, it didn't work too perfectly, but that was our backup plan if the GPS didn't work. And as you can see, the backup plan's on screen, so our GPS did not work. Spoiler alert.
Gotcha.
Uh, and there were various reasons. Like the idea was like NASA provided us a phone that will connect to the server, which will give us GPS location, or the phone gives us GPS location. It updates it to the server and then brings it to the HoloLens. That's how that works. And then we figure out with that logic like where we are. Unfortunately, that GPS updates every 5 seconds, so it wasn't super accurate. And I realized we had to figure out what north was. So we had to like look in the direction of north and hope it worked. And again, spoiler alert, that did not work. So we learned this from another school where they're like, "Yeah, we have a map implemented." I'm like, "I'm gonna steal that idea."
Yeah,
And
it's so
that was our
smart to have
logic.
backups too. Like I know that's something that's really prevalent at NASA for safety. You don't want to just rely on one thing. You want to make sure there's fail safe so that if anything goes wrong, you have that backup. So it's really cool to hear it. You had that real world experience of something not quite going how it was supposed to, but you learned like a good way around that. So I can see you're at a new site now. I know you're talking about your backup GPS of Abby walking to the next site. Could you kind of describe the difference and like what site you're at, the challenges of it, and the difference in them?
Yeah, no, each site had a similar objective. I think the first site was just take a picture of a sample and then take some notes. And then the second site was very similar. I think it was capture another image and just take notes. But I think at the first station, we were thrown an error. So our oxygen level was low or something. And so he had to go in and check that. And he was successfully checked that, it turned orange because it was like a medium warning level that it was getting low. And so he was able to see that. That was the only difference from the first to the second station. But then we'll see here later on, he'll actually collect a sample. And I don't think he takes a picture at the third one. So just collecting.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It kind of the way Abby described it, she needs to give me a little bit more credit on it about the getting the message, the lunar search message. That was the one where the original video recording, what was it? Abby was like, "Heck yeah!" Where we got the lunar search.
Yeah, I meant the status. So when we were thrown a status like low,
Mm.
yeah, so that was basically pinged from the server onto our device and picked it up. But yeah, later on we received an SOS message, so like a lunar search and rescue.
Oh, is that later?
Oh
here?
yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to
Yeah,
that.
later on.
Oh, sorry. Oh,
Yeah.
You guys are just
please.
remembering your like biggest successes and just can't wait
Yeah.
for them. No, I'm excited too. So obviously this is happening at night. Was that like what challenges came with that? That obviously sounds not ideal for testing something like this.
Well, the first thing is when you're navigating at night, they always told us this at NASA every time is watch out for the alligators.
Oh no.
So we we had to make sure we don't navigate them to the ditch, but we don't have to worry about that. And I mentioned this earlier that it's the low light conditions that cause issues. There's also rocks everywhere, so that's when
Mm-hmm.
the terrain sensing comes in. We did implement some like a real-time terrain sensing where it would detect where you were going, but that depended on us placing waypoints beforehand. And due to the hardware limitations on the HoloLens, if it loses, like the way it knows where everything is at is it does terrain scanning naturally on the lens. So if I place an object here and walk away, you can see it. But if it doesn't recognize it, and due to the low light, it'll keep forgetting like where we're at, it would move the waypoint somewhere. So that was our issue was since we couldn't place down waypoints manually and we couldn't use the GPS, we didn't have that way to like show that there was like that real-time navigation line, which was the coolest feature, honestly, but it's unfortunate. Just, of course, the moon doesn't give us a lot of lighting out there.
Right. So it is kind of like a real world test, but it's in the dark because obviously the moon is not always illuminated and it depends where you are. What parts of the spacesuit system were you focused on for this aspect? Oh, actually, I'm going to pause that question. What is this tool info list? Like what's going on in this part right here?
Yeah, no, that's actually just a reminder. So as soon as they got to that station, the station was already set to say, hey, collect a sample. And this is a reminder, just info list that just shows a picture and labels each one with each tool. And then at the bottom shows, if it's this type of sample, use this type of tool, just as more of like a reminder for them.
Very
Mm-hmm.
cool. Okay, so that kind of goes back to the question I was just asking. What part of the spacesuit you were focused on? Does that include like tools and other things like that?
I think in the future it will, like for the Wichita State's team for this NASA Suits Challenge, but um, other schools had like small robots that would follow and do different
Oh,
tasks,
wow.
help with different things. But since it was our first time going and being, well, our first time going to NASA, I guess, and really just being able to go there because our previous year they participated at Wichita State but didn't get to the actual design, but plus during COVID they weren't able to go anyways to NASA. So this is our first time going and successfully bringing a device, and then once you get more acquainted with your device and you've kind of made it better and better each year, then you bring these other devices as well. So our focus was just on this heads up display here.
Gotcha. So I'm curious to know like what went into designing kind of the user experience, including like where the different things went. I know you talked about the home always following the gaze, but Valerie and Shayo, I was curious to know what kind of went into that process.
So we really just wanted to include the main features and functions that we had to be available at all times. A lot of the placement and interactions that we designed for kind of came about during our user studies. And I think the biggest thing about our user interface that looks a little bit different than other people's is that we use the colors fluorescent green and light blue just because they're very salient in dark lighting. So we thought it was appropriate for the environment.
Yeah.
And I think to
Color is
add to
actually
that,
meant.
we have, sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I think to add to that, we have some little decisions we had to make. You see, the heads up display goes back when you have a bigger panel in front. Just you feel like your concentration is on one thing rather than the whole head up display in the way. I mean, just little things like that was what made our UX experience stand out, and we got a lot of comments, a lot of good words in that. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. We try to keep it consistent with the colors, though I did kind of make the designers a bit angry because if the mission log ever comes again and you see the current mission text, it's in red because I was trying to like show like this is the text you're on and like no, you don't use red for that. You use red for something
Yeah,
like
red's
this.
this SOS, right? That's coming in. This is what you guys were talking about before.
Our main colors meant green. Green was something that had a status level. So green, I think orange, and then red. Obviously, like green good, orange warning, and red danger. But then the blue was for things that didn't need, a level or a status level. So that was why that neutral color was chosen. So, but then the red, yeah, at the end he did last minute change on one of those overnight coding sessions, change the mission log to have the current mission task as red, and I was like, like what? So, but it ended up working out, and just those are just things for the future. So
Yeah. So while we're looking at this like bright red on screen and we're talking about color coding,
yeah.
can you guys tell me about this SOS call, like what it was, what you had to react to, and what this part of the challenge was?
Yeah,
My favorite part.
well, I'll let him talk about the technical side of it. But what happened was at Station 3, we had completed the station, but haven't we completed actually the entire mission, but hadn't received the SOS yet. And so I said, hey, we didn't get an SOS, and then the girl was like, uh-oh, and had them, shoot one to us. And what it was, received a message. That's why you're seeing this overlap mission log and mission complete, because it happened afterward, the SOS. So
you guys are really honest. You're like, hey, we were supposed to have another challenge. No,
yeah.
that's awesome.
We're supposed to get thrown an error,
Yeah.
I worked all night for this. Please send it.
Yeah, that's really more what it was. So, but we were supposed to go to that new location to help that, quote unquote astronaut in need. And then he actually, if you see right now on the screen, he said on my way back to the astronaut. So they were able to successfully receive that message back from us as well. So
awesome. That's really amazing that you knew, and obviously it went really well. This is the end of the test run. And you knew, you're like, we got this SOS down. Like they need to send it to us so we can show them.
exactly. Yeah, Ramil worked so hard on it, the night before. And
Yeah, we even went on the testing site to test it, this better work, and it did.
On our Sunday, I'm pretty sure we went on Sunday morning to make sure that worked before we went out to play at the beach. And we were like, we're making sure this works before we leave to go have fun. And it did. So, yeah.
That's amazing. Well, yeah, I know the test run is concluded. We're now just looking at some footage from the rest of the challenge. Obviously, the test looked like it went great. I know this was your second test run. The first one we talked about didn't go as smoothly. So it was really amazing to see you persevere through that and have such a successful run. And, following your run, I know part of the challenge was to present to an expert NASA panel, including an astronaut, and get feedback. I want to hear from all of you. What was that experience like for you to persevere through that first run, see the success of the second run, and then the feedback that you got? I'm just curious to know what that was like and what they said. So let's just go around the room. Abby, you can start with you.
Honestly, it was rewarding, to start from nothing, not even knowing anything about this process, and then getting there and going through this whole entire process of the last year. So it was really, it felt good. It didn't feel good on Friday night when we had a bad test run, but finally getting up there, presenting to them about our design, and successfully completing this test run, it just felt rewarding. Really, like all of our hard work had been, worth it, paid off. So,
Valerie, what about you? What was that feeling like?
I agree with what Abby said. I think we all put a lot of time and effort into this. There were times where we were having meetings at 9:30 at night, through probably until 11 p.m. and a lot of us stayed up really late a lot of days. So being able to go from that to actually going to visit JSC was really rewarding.
It was all worth it, right? All the sleepless nights. Speaking of which, Ramil, I know you had one or two, especially at Houston, just kind of working through the night to make things work. So what was this like for you?
Well, I'll just start out first off, hanging with other programmers there. You feel like everything has to be perfect, and everything wasn't. And I got to share that experience with everyone, with other programmers. Yeah, everything's broken. Me too, or us too.
Misery loves company. That's awesome.
So I don't feel too down about it, but on that Friday night, it did feel like a slap or two slaps on the face, experiencing everything that we thought that was supposed to work the way it didn't. So that was where the sleepless nights came in, where oh, I have to make sure we connect to that server, and then maybe I'll figure out GPS on Sunday. And then there's all these other things, the procedures had to work, or we had to implement the procedures, because we had a framework down, but we didn't exactly have it where for the user it says do this, do that, do this. It's just we have all this stuff and we just expect them to do it. But then when we got that feedback, like, oh, your program is supposed to tell them to do things. So that was where all that sleepless nights came from. Like you'll notice like when they press like that settings button down there, it proceeds to the next objective. And that was basically
Mm-hmm.
what we had to implement. Like, please go to objective B. And then when you're over at objective B, then grab this tool, and then that's when that tool stuff pop up, and then like use the tools, and then they just proceed that way.
So I can imagine it was like a huge relief to then get through this and just be like, we did it! It all worked, or most of it worked.
Yeah, I think the biggest relief is just seeing my teammates happy. I think in the end, because
Aw.
I just want to. I don't want. I felt like there was just a lot of responsibility. This probably wasn't mentioned, but we only had one programmer, and that was me. So it's like I really have to like do all of this essentially. I don't want to make it sound like it was too much work, but it was all definitely on me, like on that one night,
Get
because
your
the
credit.
designers can
Get your
only get
credit,
so
Ramil.
far. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was a team effort thing, obviously. Like I like that feedback helped. All the participants that we had over at WSU helped, and everything that happened on that night was definitely a big indicator what we were missing. So we all like discussed in a room, like, okay, this is what we need, this is what we need, and then I'm like, okay, we had to cut this, we had to cut this potentially, and this has to have a backup because we can't do all of this like in one night. And then in the end, this was the result, and I'm actually very happy and satisfied with it.
Good.
Yeah, it was a nice one. I was the timekeeper, by the way. They're like, Ramia's going shy, follow him and make sure he doesn't sleep. Okay,
You were
okay.
Ramil's timekeeper? Not for
Yeah,
the
man, I
challenge,
was
just for Ramil.
roommate.
Okay.
Oh, he was
I
my
need to
roommate.
check. No sleeping, Ramia.
He was like, "I'll wake you up early in the morning," and then he wakes up. I'm still on the computer typing. I'm like, "Oh, good morning."
That's
Yeah,
hilarious.
it
So,
was.
Shayo, for you, like, how is that feeling presenting and getting the feedback on the design and the experience and all of that?
You know the feeling, Mama, I made it. Yeah. I was like, well, man, because it was a. I mean, at some point there was a lot of tension. You know, we were going out to, have fun, but then we'll be at the fun site and we'll be talking, man, we have not fixed that thing,
Yeah.
And it was a lot of tension going on. I mean, we couldn't even go out to eat at some point with buying food and walking the restaurant and the hotel room and discussing. And I mean, to just have the feeling where it's all done and we're like, whew,
Yeah, we
Jesus,
definitely had, like, for
take me
example,
home.
Sunday
Get
was
me out of
supposed to be
here.
our free time, right? It came down to like, do I want to spend all day programming there, or do I want to like have fun? So it really like came down to like, do I really want that GPS to be implemented, or
It's a
do I want to hang
balance,
out in
right?
Texas?
That work
Yeah.
life, that work life balance. I feel like you guys walked that line really well because you obviously had a great run and a lot of success. Which is why I want to ask you what advice you would have for future students looking to be a part of this challenge. I would love to just go around the room. Valerie, could we start with you?
Yeah, I would say if you're interested at all, just go for it. I think a lot of us felt like some sort of imposter syndrome when we started out because we don't really know much about aerospace or engineering, maybe. Ramil was our only programmer, but obviously he delivered. Thank you. But if you're interested at all, there's a lot to learn, and I'm sure everyone has something to contribute, so go for it.
I love that. Does anyone want to hop in next, feeling inspired to share their advice?
Yeah, this is what I mentioned to our other group. Like, we're WSU students. I don't want to downplay us, but we're not Stanford or like Virginia Tech or any of those like crazy schools out there. But after like talking with all the other students there, they're no different from us. So if you want to try this out, especially with your school, you definitely have a big chance. Like you're no different from the other students, honestly. You're all gonna have problems. You're all gonna cry at night and program at night. If you're the programmers, of course. And it's you just have to tough it out. And honestly, like again, the advice is just don't be afraid. Everyone's gonna have issues just like you.
I will say, like, a big reason we had that imposter syndrome was because of our backgrounds, and it didn't really seem like it would fit. But I think that was actually our biggest strength, is we had so many different perspectives and skills that came together, and it got us pretty far.
I love that. Abby, any advice?
I agree with what they said. Really, if you don't have any experience, just go for it because I think a lot of, at least my education, career so far. I've been in school for quite a long time, and I've learned that you just kind of have to get uncomfortable to get somewhere new. Like you have to be a little uncomfortable about maybe it's the classes you're taking or the projects you're working on, or even just the programs you're applying for. I think really just put yourself out there and get a little uncomfortable, which sounds uncomfortable at first, but it does pay off. So I know we had a lot of sleepless nights and late nights of working, but I think that's just a part of any project or anything that you're part of during out your education career. So I don't know, biggest just have fun. Really, I think is the biggest advice, which sounds cheesy, but
It's clear you guys had fun though. Like you have such
oh
a
yeah,
chemistry together. So
and what Ramil talks about with prioritizing that Sunday. I think I remember saying something. He was like stressed about it. He's like, well, we need to fix GPS. We need to do this. We need this. I said, okay, what do we need to be successful on Monday night during the test? That is the task in the mission log. We need to have it tell them what to do next because obviously that's a big must. And then other stuff, put it on the back burner. And we can't do everything. No research and no design is ever going to be perfect. And in reality, NASA isn't going to take our design, right? They're not going to take anybody's designs. I know, it sucks, right? But they're not going to take these designs. They're not looking for perfection. They're looking for little ideas that maybe, students are maybe a bit more creative in some ways than other, actual employees.
right, not the designs in their entirety, but those
Exactly.
like
Yeah.
pieces that are really innovative. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's exactly what they want out of it. And it's just a really good experience too, and a good, thing to put on your resume. So, and networking, huge. So,
Yeah. It sounds like there's like a million benefits. This is
a
awesome to
million.
hear and share with anyone who's potentially interested. Shayo, let's close with you. Do you have any advice to share?
I mean, my simple, just believe in yourself and bring that belief into the team. That's it. Because I mean, we all have done something. I mean, me and Valerie have done some UX UI work on a web and app. Abby has done some human factors, a lot of research. I mean, maybe Rami was very good at Unity, but I mean, we just brought all those belief that, oh, we can do it, and we came to the team together, and we did something good. That's just it. So no matter what you think, I mean, no matter your level or whatever, I mean, you're unique in your own way. Your experience matters. Your knowledge matters. I mean, some of it is just as basic as, oh, who knows how to do video editing? Call them, join things together, and that was what made our video work out. So yeah.
I love that. That's the perfect note to end on. It's inspiring. Thank you so much all for being here. Your whole team, I really appreciate it. You guys are amazing. It was great walking through your test run with you.
Well, thank you for
Thank
having us.
you.
You.